Continuous improvement comes in lots of different flavors and styles. I'm Bella Engelbach, and I'm inviting you to journey with me to the edges of lean. Episode 136, Positive Intelligence with Corinna Freitag. Do you consider yourself to be good with people? Some of us are born with the skill of creating relationships and working well with others. Some of us struggle, especially people whose strengths are in science and technology, and we could all learn to be better at it. Whether you are a natural people person or not, Corinna Freitag has essential advice for all of us about the trait of positive intelligence and how it can enhance our work and personal relationships. Corinna Freitag, welcome to the Edges of Lean.
Thanks for having me, Bella.
It's really nice to have you here today, and this is my first podcast of 2025, so I guess you could say it's start of a new season, so a very exciting day for me as well. Corinna, I would love it if you would introduce yourself to everyone listening.
Yeah, so as a high-level introduction, I'm executive coach, advisor, and speaker with over 30 years of expertise in natural and human sciences through university, industry, and continuing education. I help STEM professionals to overcome workplace challenges so that they look forward to Mondays again. And executives hire me to improve team collaboration and thus outcomes. Regarding my background, I hold a Ph.D. in chemistry. I'm certified as a Lean Six Sigma Black Belt and as an executive coach, and I received my Associate Certified Coach credential through the International Coaching Federation, the ICF, which is a gold standard of professional coaching. I have lived in different countries and worked for over 18 years globally in the automotive and chemical industry in various positions, together with people on the shop floor up to the senior vice president level. And in my last position, I worked as a global operational excellence leader for over 5 years.
Wow, that's quite a career. And I love what you're doing because I think it's really important, Corinna. One of the things that I know from my whole career has been in the life sciences is that we have this ongoing, I don't want to say problem, but I'm going to say problem. We're going to have this ongoing problem of people who love the mathematics, people who love the science, people who love engineering, and they go into this world because they are passionate about being a good scientist or being a good engineer. And all of a sudden, they become somebody's manager. And it's really, for some people, it's an easy switch, right? But for other people, it's not an easy switch. And I don't know if it's because the people with certain brain types go into these technical fields or if it's just what they focused on. But all of a sudden, there's this struggle. And of course, HR departments try to help with training and mentoring and all sorts of things. But there's this struggle that happens that now the idea that if I just tell people to do things, it will happen. They find that doesn't work. And what I would love to ask you, Corinna, is, was there a point for you in your career where you had enough about this, when you said, wait, this is a problem?
Yeah, I have to say, working together with other people, for me, that was never a problem. Actually, that worked from the beginning. It worked really very well. My aha was actually that for over 40 years, I had the strong belief that I'm not good with people. And then I started to work together with a coach, and she gave me like a task that I should ask like several people who knew me well about my strengths. And then the most item that came back was about my strengths, that I'm good with people. And I was kind of like, huh? Me? So for me, I would say it was kind of like the other way around. I was good with people since I don't know how many years, and I thought I'm not good with people.
Wow. Isn't that interesting? So you had this belief that you weren't good with people, but other people thought you were good with people. How do you see that playing out with other people, with some of your clients? Is it more a case that they actually have these skills, but they don't realize they do, or is it a case where people really need to learn some skills?
For most of my clients, I would say that they struggle with this,
Mm,
especially that they kind of like have conflicts, like with like either with like a lot of different people or with like a special type of a different person, or that also they have kind of like communication issues, like to bring their point across. So yeah, I see this a lot with my clients.
and is it, do you think, I'm asking you, I don't know if this is a question that you're able to answer. Do you think it's because a lot of people that just their brains are wired differently, that, there's maybe some, some sort of neurodivergence going on there? Or is it just they've never been taught, that they've been focused on doing technical things?
I guess it's like a mixture. I would say it's not
Mm,
kind of like, I mean, first of all, for sure, I mean, all of our brains are like wired differently. And then also like neurodivergence comes in. But then also regarding our strengths and weaknesses, I mean, like a lot of people who go in the STEM fields, their strengths is not like about like these social skills. I mean, that is the reason that they go to STEM. I mean, maybe not for everyone, but for a lot of them. And so then they only work on their strengths, but not on their weaknesses. But what I find very interesting is really when I work together with these people, it's like, I mean, there are two things I do. It's the one thing that I really help them to rewire their brain. And also that I ask questions and give them kind of like a step-by-step approach, how they can change this. And for most of them, it really works relatively quickly that they change. And so, yeah. And I think this is kind of like the important thing. It's not written in like stone, like you can change.
you can change. I love that. And that's really important, right? We're not the way we are today. We will be different tomorrow, and we have some control over that. And
Mhm.
what we learn, what we practice, how we behave, we can change our reactions and the way we feel about things and how effective we are with other people. Does it take more energy though? I mean, for somebody who is, having difficulty with those social skills, does it sort of take more energy for them to do that? Do they need to also think about some sort of recovery time as well?
I mean, I would say for sure if they start out with this, but I mean, it's kind of like the way our brain works is that like the neurons that fire together, like wire together. So the more often you do like a new behavior, the bigger you get kind of like a highway in your like brain. And so that you can fall automatically into this habit. So, which means at the beginning, for sure, I would say it takes more energy and you really have to think about it. But the more often you do this, the less energy it will take. And I mean, for sure, if there's like an introvert person and an extrovert person, I would say for an introvert person, it will be kind of like all the time that it will take more energy for them, like to exchange with other people, like than for an extrovert person who probably like gets energy out of it. But I think at least people can get to the state that for themselves they can reduce like the energy they need for it.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I ask the question is because I always tell people I'm an introvert who plays an extrovert. I mean, you can't do a podcast. I'm being a complete introvert, right? In my consulting and coaching work, all of my work is I have to be extroverted. But that for me, that takes energy. And as you said, for extroverted people, it gives them energy. And it's just important to recognize where are you and how does it fall out. So tell me, Corinna, when a client comes to you, do you start with some assessments with them? How do you figure out what's the right approach for them?
Yep. I mean, there are actually two things I do. I mean, at the beginning, I speak with them and I ask them what they want to achieve. And based on this, we set targets and that we really use like, yeah, targets with numbers. And I mean, it's still kind of like most of the targets, let's say, subjective, because if it's kind of like, a soft skill, it's difficult to describe, and it's more like maybe also a bit on a gut feeling, but still you can put like on a Likert scale, like from 1 to 10, where are you right now and where you want to be. This works actually quite well, so that really you can quantify it and also like track the progress if you improve or if the client improves. So this is like one thing I do, and then also that I know with what kind of tools I should use. And then there is one tool that I use with all my clients. It's called Positive Intelligence. And at the beginning, there's like an assessment where people assess what kind of saboteurs they have. And these saboteurs are these nasty voices in our head. And in total, there are like 10. And there's like a master saboteur, the so-called judge. It's a master saboteur because this one actually every one of us has. And the judge, as the name says, judges ourselves, others, and circumstances. And then there are 9 other saboteurs. And usually we have most of them or almost all of them, but in different intensities. And I asked them to do this test at the beginning, like to see which kind of saboteurs they have. Because, for example, there's kind of like the controller who, as the name says, likes to control everyone, everything. This is like the micromanager, or for example, the avoider who would like to pull like the paper head over his or her head to avoid things. And this kind of the person who likes to procrastinate, or the restless who likes to be all the time busy and looks like for the next big adventure. So this is what I do at the beginning, because based on this, I can connect already kind of like the dots. Okay, this does not work well for them. And then if I see like the assessment, it's kind of like, no wonder why it does not work well for them.
And that must be really helpful with clients who are coming from a STEM background, because I think that for a lot of people, going into something like coaching where everything is kind of soft and mushy and there are no metrics and no KPIs, nothing feels like there's nothing you can measure. I mean, that just feels like a very strange place to be. But it's very interesting what you're talking about, which is, well, let's start out by doing some measurements. Maybe it's a little bit different from what you're used to, but let's do some measurements, let's do some assessments. And you're grasping the current condition. You know what's really going on, and you know where you're moving forward to. So that's a great way to start. It must feel comforting to your STEM clients.
Yeah, and I mean, this is also the reason that I use it. I mean, first of all, I'm like a scientist. So I studied chemistry and spent like years in this area. So for me, it's really important that the tools I use, that they have like a scientific proof, plus really also, to measure things. I mean, also I worked for years in continuous improvement using like Lean Six Sigma tools in industry. And so there all the time, we measured things. And so therefore it's important to me to do this also like with my clients.
Once you have started to, you and the client have started to assess sort of where they are. Some coaches are very non-directive, right? They ask the client a lot of questions and let the client kind of find their way. And the coaches, as some of the coaching teachers say, as a guide by the side. Do you take that kind of approach, or do you have a more directive approach to say, well, if this is the challenge that you're facing, here are some strategies you can try?
I use a mix. So I use open-ended questions like that people can come up with like their own answers, but I also like reflect and like hold the mirror up. And I mean, I worked in the space where they are now and where they struggle. So I have a lot of experience from this space. So therefore also I give advice. And the interesting thing to me is really, I mean, I'm certified via the International Coaching Federation, and they are kind of like, oh, you should only ask like these open-ended questions. But a lot of my clients, they really tell me what they love most is that I give them advice based on my experiences.
I think that that's an important thing to do myself. I mean, you can't, I mean, I certainly do try to coach as much as possible by asking questions, but there are times when I do a step back, and I always say, now this is not classic coaching. This is not coaching. This is Bella giving advice based on my experience. And I think, when you have someone who has experience, one of the things that people lack is, in addition to coaches, they lack mentors, right? They have a hard time connecting with people who can provide them that bigger picture and advice from their experience. But I'm always really careful, as I think you are, to make sure that it's clear. This is my advice. This is not the same thing as coaching. Yeah. Yeah. I was on LinkedIn this morning, Corinna, and I saw a post that you had just put up about somebody who was struggling with sort of the art of conversation. And it actually made me think, as I was reading your post, it made me think about the challenge of finding mentors and sponsors, which is something that people really need in their career. And so I really appreciated that post. I wonder if can you talk a little bit more about that without giving away too much about your client, of course.
Yeah, I mean, this was really interesting because my client, and I mean, to some people, it might be when I bring this up that they think like, yeah, but this is like something which is very simple and easy to do. But for my client, she really struggled with this. So she planned to have with several colleagues, like lunch breaks, because she wanted to improve like the relationship. But then she was kind of like, and I have this lunch break and I have no idea what I should say. And so therefore I did like some brainstorming with her. I mean, first I asked her questions like what are her ideas and what she could say. But then I also gave her like advice. And also, I mean, based on what she told me, because she had said like with one of the colleagues, she went together like to a seminar. And then I said like, hey, so then you can speak about the seminar and just like ask questions and how this person liked it. Or also for some person, she brought up some personal stuff. And then I said like, yeah, maybe then you can ask there like some question about like their children, or maybe also like about vacation. And also you can share yourself personal stuff and see like how it resonates with the other person, if the other person is interested. And I mean, if not, then don't share more. But if the person is interested in this topic, then you can speak more about it.
Yeah. So, and it's funny, isn't it? Because as you say, it sounds simple for a lot of people. So that chit chat and conversation just comes naturally. You're going to sit down with someone, you're going to ask them, isn't this weather cold? Or, how are the kids? I mean, that comes naturally, but I don't think it does come naturally to other people. And it's part of, isn't it, of this idea of emotional intelligence, which is about not just about, how you feel, emotionally, but how do you understand how other people are feeling? And so it's an important part of building that kind of skill. Is that something you see a lot that people are? I mean, you mentioned it before that a lot of people who work in STEM went into STEM because they're good at it and it's comfortable for them. I know when, you see some people and they just sit down, they chat naturally, they create those relationships, and those relationships are important just because we're social creatures and we need relationships, but they're also important from a career perspective, right? That when you know people, you're building a network, you're creating ways for your career to advance, you're learning about other fields that are adjacent to yours. Why do you think that people have not learned this?
I think because it was never taught in school. I mean, we learn like math, we learn history, and we learn different languages, but we never really learn like how to interact with other people. I mean, at least not as like that there's like a major about it. So maybe we learn it like with like our classmates, but there is no one who really teaches this to us.
Yeah, I do. I think that Well, it depends on the type of people, the type of person you are, right? Children who get to spend a lot of time playing with each other will learn some of those social skills on the playground or, out in the park or
Mm.
something. But not every kid has that experience, and not every kid is able to go into that already prepared to have those conversations or to have those little arguments or the things that help to build those social skills. Yeah.
Yeah, plus I guess also it depends on like how they grew up, like what happened or what their parents did, if they were like good role models or not. And also again on the strengths and weaknesses. I mean, there are people they just do it, but then there are people it's a weakness of them and then they struggle to do this and then they don't know how to do it. And yeah.
And it creates anxiety, and then it's hard
Mm.
because you're anxious about it. Right,
Yeah.
right, right. Karina, can you tell a story about some of your clients and the kinds of successes that they've had with your
Mhm.
coaching?
Yeah, yeah. So one client, and so actually she had like two major issues. So the one thing was that when something bothered her, she did not say anything, and she waited so long
Mm.
till everything exploded in her, like a water in a steam cooker. And so that was then also kind of like the way she reacted. So at one point she just exploded, which then did not make it so, yeah, nice to work with her.
It must have been
And
terrible, actually, right? Really
yeah.
terrible. Yeah.
But the great thing was really that already something around after 2 weeks of coaching, like her manager asked her like what she was doing because her behavior had already changed significantly to the better. And then actually the other thing she had was that she had like a conflict with one of her team members, and she was also sitting with this person in one office. And she had this conflict already like for around 7 years. And now she was kind of
Oh
like,
my
she's,
goodness.
yes, yeah. So this is like a
Wow.
long time. Now she was really kind of like, I'm so sick of it and I don't want to have this anymore. I look for a new job. But the problem was for her, it was really kind of like a pattern. She had, in general, how she called it, like a problem with grumpy old men. So she could
Oh
not
dear.
handle them. And so also with this, like with this team member, just after a few weeks of coaching, her relationship like improved already. And at the end of the coaching, they were best working buddies. And
Oh
I
my
mean,
goodness.
probably because they are very different. I don't expect that they go together out like for having a dinner or like a coffee or a beer, but work-wise, they were now really best work buddies. And for me, it's also interesting because I want to know if my coaching is like sustainable. So I ask my clients if they are
Mm.
willing to meet again, like after a few months. So I did this, and she was still kind of like, oh, it's like she was like really smiling. And so as she spoke about like how the relationship with this person changed.
That is a fantastic story. And I feel sorry for her colleague that she had decided he was a grumpy old man, and so I'm glad she was able to work that out. So what was some of the things that you helped her do then? How did she was she changing her behavior, or, which then led to a change in her thinking?
Yeah, the one thing is what I use is this positive intelligence because this really helps like to rewire our brain, like to change
Yeah.
habits. But then also the other thing, especially like when you have conflicts with other people, so that I ask like certain questions. So, I mean, and you spoke about like the emotional intelligence. So, and this is usually missing that they do not really think about this other person. So I start to give them like this awareness, like to ask questions like, what do you think this other person think? How do they feel? What is like, how does their world look like? And so that suddenly they get like another perspective
Mm.
and also really ask them like what they really want to achieve with this person, what is important for them. For example, there was like one client, and she also, I mean, she had like a conflict with another person like for a year. And as the time she started, she was kind of like that she wanted they really get also like best buddies like privately. But then after time, she realized, no, it's not necessary. It's really just like work-wise, really needs to be like good buddies, but privately it does not matter. And then also like I ask questions so that they understand kind of like where they have commonalities, where they have like this common ground. And doing this and helping them like, yeah, to get there, this, yeah, usually really helps that they can improve their relationship. And I mean, also maybe to give like an example,
So, and
because, yeah,
no, go ahead.
okay. Yeah. So for this client, because she also had said like about this team member, she complained about that he never shared important information with her. But then I asked like, okay, did you ever tell him that you need this information? And then it came out like that sometimes he sent her this information, but she never said like, thank you. Like, hey, this is great
Mm,
that you sent this to me. She just forgot it. And also these kind of like things, yeah, when you are in the situation, it's very easy to overlook this. But if there's like a person from the outside, then you can point it out and say like, hey, look here, there's maybe something you are missing.
right. So she had to learn to see him as another human being worthy of respect, and also to acknowledge the things that he was doing that were actually good for her, which I can imagine on his side. Then, if he was never being thanked for when he sent the information, I'm not going to send that information. Why would I send it? She doesn't
Yeah.
acknowledge that she got it. Maybe she doesn't need it. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
Wow, wow. Yeah. Corinna, can you tell us a little bit more about positive intelligence and how that is different from other types of
Mhm.
intelligence?
Yeah, so positive intelligence is about like training what I call mental toughness. And what that means is like how you handle challenges with a positive rather than like a negative mindset. And with this, I don't mean that suddenly like everything is like sunny and rose colored. It's really, I mean, life throws
Mm,
challenges in our way. And this probably will never change. But it's a difference if you can approach like those challenges with like a positive or a negative mindset. So this really makes a big difference. And the concept of positive intelligence teaches that you can change this, like to approach this like more in a positive way. And they say like there are three mental core muscles. I mean, we don't have like muscles in our brain, they are neurons, but I like the analogy because, for example, when you want to run a marathon, if you only read a book about it, then and you don't
mm,
any training, so then probably you will fail. I mean, reading the book will probably help you to prepare better, but you also need to train. And it's like the same with like our mental muscles. We need to train them. And there are like these three different mental muscles, like the saboteurs, which I mentioned already, like these nasty voices in our head who tell us all these, yeah, negative things. And when we are able to catch them, it makes a difference to say, like, this is a saboteur who says this about me. Or if you think that this is like your own thought. So this is like the one mental muscle. Then there is like this antagonist. It's a so-called sage who has like a special perspective that everything can be turned into a gift and opportunity. And then it has also like special powers, like for example, empathy, so that you learn to have empathy with
mm.
yourself or with others, and also to be curious, like and explore and to innovate. And the third thing is that you are able to self-command your mind so that when the saboteurs speak to you, that you can quiet them. And so this works like that you use your five senses. So your sense of sight, taste, smell, hearing, and touch. And by this, you activate and strengthen the part of the brain that serves you. And as a simple example, you can do this after some practice, really in the middle of the day. So when you're sitting in the meeting and someone speaks, you can use your sense of hearing and listen to this person. Also, you can use your sense of sight and really to watch this person. Just very important, without judging this person. Or you just use your pen and use your sense of touch and be curious how the surface of the pen feels. So these are like exercises you can do, and which then, yeah, as I said, activates and strengthens the part of the brain that serves us.
And that must really help with, as you're saying, those internal saboteurs, right? Because it's gonna take you away from listening to what's going on in your head, those thoughts, those ideas that are negative, that are getting in the way. Yeah, because that brings you then right into the present moment. It makes you aware of your surroundings. Yeah, that's a wonderful mindfulness technique, but it's an attention technique, right? Right. It brings you back to I don't have to be thinking about how terribly I just spoke. I can think about the person who's speaking now, and just I love what you said, to observe them without judgment, to hear them, just to really be present, right? That sounds like a tremendously effective practice for people to take on. Yeah. Corinna, tell us about how people can find you, and about all the places that you are, which is a lot of places.
So yeah, I think the best place is probably on LinkedIn, because there, I mean, as you just mentioned, you just read like a post, and I post there regularly. So which means like, yeah, people can read my content, but also they can connect with me on LinkedIn and like send me a note. And also I have like a homepage, which is just my name, like corinafreitag.de or .com also like works. These are actually the two best places to find me.
That's great. And I have to say, I do enjoy your LinkedIn posts. They're very interesting. And so I suggest that everybody check them out. There's always something to learn from what Corinna is posting on LinkedIn. Corinna, as you think about like where we are right now with the educational system, and I think, and you're in Germany, right? Here in the US, there's this movement towards what they call social emotional learning, which is teaching some of the things that you're talking about, particularly to some of the younger students, with I think an idea to reduce some of the conflict that we see in school, and to help children be better at the things that you're talking about. But there's also kind of a pushback to that, of people who are saying, well, that's not real education. Why don't we stick to reading and math? The kids are not, they don't know how to read after COVID. Nobody knows how to read. Everybody's on their phones too much. People can't do math anymore. And I was just wondering, from your perspective going forward, if you were advising the schools, what would you be doing?
I would advise like also really to teach these things. I mean, for sure, it's like important that people can do like math and things like that and learn like different languages. But I mean, if they just have like maybe like 1 or 2 hours per week, and so with this, maybe one of those other areas. So I mean, just let's say you learn a little bit less about, let's say, like history or I don't know, whatever else, I think this would not hurt. I mean, my experience is that so many things I learned in school, I forgot it anyway. But really to add like at least 1 or 2 hours per week to really learn these things, I really think this would make a big difference. And for me, I mean, especially kind of like this tool of positive intelligence, I only discovered it in 2022. And during the time at university, I mean, I did already things in parallel, like to train my soft skills, but this was more like around, okay, how to communicate better or how to give like a better presentation. And it did not really like tackle the root causes, like positive intelligence does. And so I think if I would have had such a tool already like earlier in my life, and maybe already like have learned about it in school, I think with this I would have been far more like successful, but also it would have made my life like easier and with less struggle.
Yes. Yeah. Easier, happier. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Corinna, what would be your one piece of advice for a young person studying out?
Yeah, really to train your mental toughness. I think this is so important. And I mean, for sure, also like if you're in the STEM area, for sure, it's also important that you know like the area, like your topic you work in.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really so much about these other things, about kind of like what maybe you think it's kind of like this woo-hoo, I don't know. So about these soft skills. So therefore, I really recommend like working on, training your mental toughness and what I define as like that you can handle challenges with like a positive rather than a negative mindset, because this really will help you tremendously to overcome your challenges and thus thrive at work and in your life.
Really, really good advice. Because no matter who you are or how good you are, how intelligent you are, those challenges do come along. And being able to tackle them with positive frame of mind. And as you said, not looking at everything through rose-colored glasses, but just with that positive frame of mind would make a really big difference. Wonderful advice. Thank you, Corinna. Well, Corinna, thank you so much for traveling with me to the edges of lean. This has been a really good conversation for all of us who are coming from that technical background or work with people from the technical background. So thanks so much for coming along.
Thanks so much for having me, Bella.
This is Bella Engelbach, and I would like to thank Corinna Freitag for joining me at the edges of lean. What did you learn from this conversation? What ideas did it spark? We would love to hear from you. Find Corinna on LinkedIn and at corinnafreitag.de. Please find me at LinkedIn or at leanforhumans.com. Subscribe to The Edges of Lean. There's a lot to learn. Check out all the tremendous lean content at leancommunicators.com, where you will receive informative new content every week. The Edges of Lean is written and produced by Bella Engelbach with support from Podcast Inc. This is a Lean for Humans production.